Hello there, friends. I'm Scott Wakefield, lead pastor at First Christian Church of Greene County, and I am here today with
Kristin Girton.
And we're going to have a coffee convo. Awkward pause. Nice. That's good cheese there.
Yeah.
Coffee convos is an opportunity to get to know some friends and hear about the work of God in their lives and what makes them unique and get to learn about them. So you qualify, Kristin Girton.
I am a friend.
You are.
I'm a friend.
And you're a friend from West Virginia.
I am from West Virginia. I am an 8th generation Appalachian.
Seriously?
Yep. It's like
Wow.
it's like my favorite thing to say when people ask me, tell me about you. My first thing I always say is, I'm an 8th generation Appalachian.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
So, like all West Virginia?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah,
Really?
for the most part. Yeah, the West Virginia are both my families.
Cool.
My mom and my dad's families were West Virginians, and although my birth certificate sadly does not say that.
No.
No,
What does it say?
New Jersey.
Hmm.
But I moved back to West Virginia when I was 4,
Okay.
and I was raised there by a single mom,
Okay.
and my grandmother,
Okay.
with 2 sisters,
Go.
with 1 bathroom. So
Enough said.
yeah,
So where are you in the birth order?
I'm the middle child.
You're the middle.
Yes,
Okay.
but I always say, like, I have a unique birth order
Yeah.
because my older sister was very gifted
Okay.
and went to a gifted high school.
Yeah.
And so most of my teachers didn't know that I was the second born.
Okay.
So they expected me to be a firstborn.
All right.
So there was
So you didn't have to live up to.
no, yeah, but
You were
but
let.
it's, sometimes when you don't have yes, but sometimes when you don't have to live up to that, you have to be that.
Oh.
So like I think I'm a nice blend of a firstborn and a middle child.
Yeah. My brother was 6 years younger, and he obviously had a lot to live up to at Fayettetown High School. He talks about that dynamic for him being a little different.
Yeah.
But we were enough apart that it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. We are very close in age.
Yeah.
My older sister is 2 years older than me.
Okay.
And my youngest sister is 3 years younger than me.
Cool.
And we were all inseparable. We all went to the same university, like everything. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Really?
yeah.
So, what did you study and why?
Okay, so I went to West Virginia University.
Mountaineer?
Mountaineers. Yeah,
Okay,
good. Yeah. And I went to school. I was going to study psychology.
Yeah.
And very quickly realized that was what my older sister was studying and that I didn't want to follow in her footsteps.
Okay.
So then I was going to study music and theater and spent 1 semester doing music and theater and
Yeah.
realized that I didn't like the competition side
Really?
of music and theater. That to me wasn't why I loved those things.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So 9/11 happened when I was in college,
Okay.
and so I decided that I had always been getting my minor in religious education, religious studies.
Religious studies.
Studies, because
yeah.
it was a secular university, so
Yeah, yeah.
studies. And so what I decided was I would go into journalism, and I would study news editorial, which now is, almost a extinct profession. And then I would go to the Middle East, and I would be a reporter.
Cool.
And so my main study in religious studies was in the 3 faiths of Abraham.
Yeah.
So Muslim, Christianity, and Judaism. And so then it came down to my 5th year of college.
Religiongeschichte.
Yeah, my 5th year of college, they said, you can graduate now if you get your religious studies degree. But you need another semester if you get your journalism degree.
And so you were like, now sounds good?
I was like, sounds great.
Yeah.
So my degree is in religious studies.
Cool.
Studied everything from Egyptian religions to Old Testament. Had some really great professors that taught me that it was okay to debate and still have my own faith and my own path. And I grew up with a mom who was she was very curious about religion her whole life, and so when she moved to California, studied under different
Sort of
spiritual
streams
leaders,
of, okay.
and so she studied under Robbie Zachariah, studied under Hal Lindsey, and then met Corey ten Boom. And
That's cool.
when she met Corey ten Boom and kind of started studying around a lot of the things that Corey ten Boom had studied, she found apologetics and found a lot of different things and my mom has just always been a learner. You know, so like she will spend, but I remember my senior year of high school, we did a like in-depth study of Revelations together. And that was it was fun for me to be a part of that. And so I think she also opened the doors to allow me to figure out my own faith. I think she always knew that we would find our way to Christ, whatever that was, but she was very open-minded. And so growing up in southern West Virginia, I would go to snake handling churches.
Nice.
I would go to very apostolic churches. It was the first time I ever experienced someone speaking in tongues. That was quite an experience.
There you go.
And then
I figured that'd be the word you'd use.
Yeah. And then when I turned 13, I really felt like God was, really pushing this calling on my life to be a nun. And so my mom was very supportive of that, and so took me to New Jersey, back to my godmother, who was Catholic, and put me through a boot camp. Oh, no, sorry. You were talking about being I had to go back there to become Catholic. So went back there and spent 2 weeks there under like a little Catholic boot camp and became Catholic. And then they were like, oh, but you're too young to be a nun. You have to be a little bit older. You have to be 16. How old do you have to be? Oh, 16. And I said, okay. And
I think that's newly older than it used to be.
I feel like it depends too. On the order.
Yeah, okay.
But so I was like, by the time I was 16, I had a boyfriend. Didn't really want to be a nun anymore.
Yeah.
But really loved the history and the tradition and I loved the church. So every Saturday night, I went to Mass and went to CCD, and my mom went with me and helped teach the classes there. And then every Sunday morning, I got up and I went to the Methodist church, and I went to the Methodist Bible school, and my mom taught there. And so...
got a little bit of Protestantism on Sunday after...
Well, and then she sent us to Baptist camp.
There you go.
So, like, it was very much a very ecumenical family,
So CCD is what, for those who may not know?
Same as Sunday school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Catholic Sunday school, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So, and then ended up falling in love with Russ in college, and he was very devoutly Catholic, and I think God was just weaving my way to Christ throughout my path to be able to share that with him and to share that with our children. And for me, it wasn't always about the institution. It was more about sharing that faith and sharing my love of Christ and that light of Christ in whatever way our family needed to.
Right. Yeah.
So, I fell in love with a soccer player.
As everyone should.
Yeah,
it was
great.
Everyone should.
Yeah. Spent some years chasing a soccer ball around the United States.
Yeah. So, let's ask a bunch of get-to-know-you speed round questions. Why are you wearing a green jacket?
Because it's my Greeneville coat.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
Okay.
For those who are wondering and listening, traditional curly or waffle fries?
It depends on where they're from.
Okay.
So if you want like steakhouse fries, you got to go to Little Top. You want curly fries.
Okay, good.
You got to go to Arby's.
Because that's pretty much the only place that has them, maybe.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah, and then waffle fries, you got to go to the Hyperion.
Ooh, I was not expecting that.
Yeah, the best to-go food in town.
Never had Hyperion waffle fries.
You should get them.
I now know.
Yeah.
What's a weird gift you've received? Doesn't have to be the weirdest.
A weird gift. I don't even know.
Are you trying to think what's one that Russ did not give me?
Oh, no. He gave me Christmas CDs for our very first Christmas that we were dating.
Oh, yeah?
That was what he gave me. Christmas CDs.
From then on, the deal was sealed.
And I was like, what in the
That
world?
is a little
This is really
strange.
odd. And he was like, later, he was like, but you love Jesus and you love to sing. I was like, well, that's okay.
Well, that's thoughtful.
I guess.
He's trying to
like,
go
at
with
the
the things you
time, I was
liked.
like, you're cheap. But apparently he was
You're
thoughtful. Like, I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
What's something you could write a book about?
About the dichotomy of my upbringing.
Meaning what?
So I was raised by a single mom in very southern, at times poverty-stricken West Virginia.
Yeah.
And my dad lived in Connecticut.
Okay.
And so there was this very dichotomous part of my life that, like...
You experienced sort of both.
Yeah, and my mom was very good at making sure that we were very well educated and very well... so I feel like I can walk in any room and be a part of it.
Yeah.
And so I have no problems going to soup kitchen, to a gala, to...
Yeah, there's adaptability and flexibility built in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a bit of that for different reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a bit. I've noticed that one thing I wanted for my kids was a grow up in one place rootedness.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a sense of place and community that I didn't have as much because we did a ton of moving in various places, big cities, rural, and places where like I was minority as a white kid and definitely not a minority as a white kid. There was a flexibility. I mean, growing up, I thought, obviously this is normal, but it isn't necessarily all that normal.
Yeah.
So I think flexibility for me socially is a piece of that. That's kind of what I think of when you said that.
Yeah.
One last. This is an interesting. It's not really a speed round question in terms of like being answered quickly, but what's something that's recently made you mad?
I think for me, it's learning to deal with how people treat other people. You know, like, because I am...
growing up to be old enough to see some things.
Well, and to, like, I am very much a two, so I want to fix everything.
Okay.
And so, like...
a sense of justice?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so, like, the other day I had to sit through a meeting where someone was not kind. And for me, like, that's really hard.
Yeah.
You know, because I want to fix it.
Yeah.
And so I get
So you had
very
to sit
frustrated.
there while they were being that way without being able to...
Yeah, without being able to fix it.
Interject.
I want to fix it.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm tracking.
Yeah.
So you get mad when there's a justice need that...
Well, and I don't get mad. You can walk on me. I'm terrible about that.
Okay.
Like, I have, like, this incredible sense of loyalty that, like, you can walk all over me. But daggone it, if you are mean to one of my friends.
Oh, yeah.
Or even a stranger.
Yeah.
I have, like, a very strong reaction.
Cool. What's something that's recently made you sad?
Mental health. Not only my own struggles, but seeing people that I love really struggle throughout the pandemic and throughout, you know, now and trying to be more open and honest about those struggles. Because I think
depression, anxiety, is that what you're talking about? Mental health things?
Mental health. Like, I just feel like, you know, we lost a friend to mental health issues now over a year ago, and my own struggles with mental health, and the things that we pass down to our children, which are hard to sometimes vocalize, you know, and so...
I see more and more stats about the rise in mental health issues, especially with younger folks, like below the age of 30, all the way down.
Yeah.
Increasing a lot.
Yeah.
A lot right now. My wife works in that world, and she sees more and more teens than they've ever seen.
Well, and
many more than they ever used to.
That has to have something to do with, you know, the influx that we have of social media and the influx that we have of this, you know, very big world that we now live in.
Yeah.
You know, and so life is not what you see online.
Right.
And so that I think that being open about that and being honest about that, I mean, is huge,
Sure.
especially for young women.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's gargantuan.
Yeah. So
The pressures of living up to perceptions that are actually not real.
yeah. I mean,
It's impossible.
literally
It's
not
impossible.
real.
Yeah, literally not real.
You know.
And yet they are communicated as such, as if this is viable, as if this is real.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm glad I didn't end up staying in journalism. You know, because so much of that has now become the problem in so many ways. So,
Cool. So, what is an alderwoman?
Okay, so
And explain to our people who you are.
okay, so
In that sense, I know you're more than that.
Yes, yeah.
But it's
so
unique, and we want to know about it.
an alderwoman
Yes.
is an Old English term
Uh huh.
for elder,
Yes.
and it is, in our sense of the use of the word, is that we are the town council.
Yeah.
So
You're the old people sitting at the gate,
we are
dispensing wisdom
Yes.
when they come to you with needs.
Yes.
At least that was what it was.
Yeah, and so you know, we've had some great, you know, examples of that. I mean, I'm always like, I sit in the same seat that, you know, President of the United States held, you know, because that was his first office.
That's true.
He was an alderman here in
Yes.
Greeneville. So,
Yes.
but
you
I'm
are
a
sitting in the seat
presidential
of
history
greatness.
junkie.
I mean, even though he's rated as one of the last.
Third to the last.
But okay. Right.
We'll take it.
Greeneville, Tennessee, we'll take it.
We'll take it. Yeah.
So you're an alderman, and you've been an
Yes.
alderman since.
So I just entered my second year of my first term.
Okay.
So we have 2-year
Right.
terms in Greeneville.
Yeah.
I grew up with my mom was very civically engaged. She did things like sue the Board of Education for violating the Sunshine Law.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she was just always redid the entire library at our schools just because it needed done. Like,
Yeah.
she just always was a community activist. And so when I was in middle school, she ran for office.
Cool.
And so I went to all her meetings and watched her and learned Robert's Rule of Order and all the wonderful things that it meant to be a politician. And
Yeah.
although in my family we don't call it politicians, we
What
like to be
do-
elected officials,
Oh, okay.
because that to me is actually serving your constituents instead of
And politician can sometimes carry the connotation of like a career power broker of self.
Yes. And
kind of
so,
thing.
yeah, so I try to steer away from that word as much as possible. But
But
so
it's politics, and
it is.
it's the use of power for
It
civic.
is for civic duty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I sit on the board with Mayor Doty.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, our brand new mayor, Cal Doty.
And our previous mayor had been there 27.
So he had been mayor for 12 years,
Okay.
and then he had served a total of 32 years total.
Oh, okay. All right.
As alderman
Gotcha.
and then as mayor.
Okay.
And then, of course, Tim Teague, Scott Bullington, and Jenny Kidwell make up the rest of our board.
Okay.
And then Todd Smith, who attends your church, is our city administrator. So he does all the day-to-day work. And then
Sort of
we're kind of his
executing-
check and balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Executing for y'all.
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
reports to y'all, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But he's in charge of like everything day to day. And then, you know, we're that check and balance for him, and
Yeah.
he is that for us.
So what motivated you to be a Greeneville alderwoman?
So 6 years ago, County Mayor David Crum at the time, kind of knew from we knew each other because I worked at the Y for 12 years as a personal trainer. And so he was running in my Couch to 5K class that I taught, and he knew that my mother had been involved in politics, and that was kind of something that I would be open to as I got, you know, more involved in the community here.
Yeah.
We've been here for 14 years now, so and so he appointed me to the county planning commission
Okay.
about 6 years ago, and so I kind of started there, and then Butch Peterson stepped down from
Rec.
the county commission,
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
and because he had moved out of district. And so they needed somebody to fill in his seat. And so I put in an application to be appointed for that role and went and spoke. And they ended up appointing April Lane, which she had ran for office. And it was a, wise move on their, part, because she had ran. She was the next one that would have been elected if you had gone in order of the ballot.
Right.
And so when I got home that night from that interview, I had an email from a good friend that said, "Don't run in the county. Come run in the city, and let's, see if we can initiate some change in the city." And so at the time, I knew Cal was going to run, and I did not think Buddy Hawk was going to run again. Someone had said he was considering retiring, and so I was like, okay, well, let me pray about this. And they choose 2 out of 3. And so I went ahead and decided.
And Buddy had been on the board of mayor and alderman for a good long while.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, great man, loved his community, has done amazing things for, Greeneville, especially with Parks and Recs, and was very involved there. And so I decided I was going to run, and then he did come out and run, so it ended up being a 3-person run. And then on election night, I won by 1 vote.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
wow.
And he was so classy about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because when they called to say, you've won, the paper called.
Yeah.
And, you've won by 1 vote. And I said, well, Alderman Hawk contested, because that's his right, and it's 1 vote, even though it's electronic, right. And they said no. And, that to me, the fact that he didn't was so classy, and just, he's such loved his community so much. And so I am grateful that I had the opportunity to, learn from that and learn wisdom from that. Yeah. And so I sat 3 goals for the first 2 years in office.
Okay.
And we completed them as a board in the first 6 months.
What were they?
I wanted to get a new fire truck.
Okay.
We have since ordered that. It's a new ladder truck that will be able to be at Station 3. Our fire department works very hard to make sure that we have the best equipment to take care of town. And
our fire department is well prepared in all of those certifications and licenses, way more than most.
Yeah, so they actually hold an ISO 2.
Okay.
Which I believe there are only like 33 communities in the state of Tennessee that have that ranking.
I've heard these kinds of things before, yeah.
And Chief Shipley has put together an incredible team of firefighters over there that do their due diligence to make sure that we really use our taxpayers' money very wisely. And they've set us up on a very good plan, 5-year plan, to make sure that we're rotating equipment at the right time. And so
there's a lot of that goes into all that.
All of our departments now do that too, which is great. Yeah. So we got a new fire truck coming, and then while I was running for office, I made the one thing I wanted to do more than anything was I wanted to talk to as many department heads as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And so I tried to be very open-minded the whole time I was running for office.
How many department heads are there?
Ooh.
Ish?
10.
Okay.
I didn't get to all of them.
That's a closer number than I would have been able to give.
But so I went, every one of them that I spoke to said, we're so lucky as a town that we have fantastic benefits as far as, when you're working.
For employees?
Yeah, but the problem was that we have a mandatory retirement for specific departments, and they weren't getting insurance for that bridged time period that they had to retire till they get to Medicaid.
Oh, really?
And so that was a problem.
Okay.
And so when we went back and looked over our insurance this last year,
that was going on.
it was a very time consuming.
Yeah.
We put a lot of effort into making sure it was and it was a lot. Yeah. But so we now have that availability for our employees, that they can get insurance until they get to Medicaid.
Cool.
Which
the same insurance they've got before that.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so, and they do have to pay for it, you know, but
Right.
it's at least an option that they have. And so I'm very proud of that.
Cool. So that's the second.
So the third actually hasn't come completely to fruition yet.
Okay.
But we have the grant coming in, and I cannot take credit for this at all. But it did happen. Brad Peters, who was our former public works director, worked very hard to get a multimodal grant that will replace the sidewalks on Main Street and will make them ADA accessible.
Wow.
I have a niece that is in a wheelchair and, you know, probably will be in either that or a walker her whole life.
So they
and
haven't been ADA
No, they are
compliant.
not right now.
Okay.
The brick downtown, I know everybody loves the brick downtown, but until you experience, you know, being with someone who is handicapped,
Yeah.
and you don't see the need for that as much. And so my mom said when I ran for office, she said, pick 2 things that matter to your community and pick 1 thing that matters to you. And if you can get 3 things done in the time you're in office in 2 years, you've made progress.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we all want to see Depot, you know, finished.
Oh, sure.
But the sidewalks for me were very personal.
Yeah. So, what
that's
does that
coming.
mean will be different about it?
Do you know what the sidewalks look like in front of Walter State?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
the plan.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, so they still have that like
They still look.
historic feel
Yes,
because
sure.
of the brick liner that
Well,
runs
it's
through
historic
there.
district.
You know, but
Yeah.
like they'll just be more accessible for, you know, our handicapped
Cool.
population, which is and for our runners, you know, and make
Like
downtown
yourself.
like myself that make
You
downtown
really
more
what
walkable.
you were going for is good, easily runnable sidewalks. I mean, just admit it.
It would be nice. I'm not gonna lie. I walk every morning,
Yes, you do.
and there are some areas where we don't even have that accessibility, and
Yeah.
so like, how do we continue that?
Yeah.
The newest trend in municipalities that we're seeing throughout the United States is what they call 15-minute towns.
Okay.
And that's really kind of my goal of what I see Greeneville as being, and that's that from that center, which we are making Depot, you know, really our heartbeat of downtown now. And from that 15 minutes, you can walk
Oh,
to anything you need.
okay.
Whether you need to walk to a market or you need to go see a movie or you know, want a place to go get dinner or, you know, you're going to stop and grab a beer or you're going to get a
Yeah.
cup of coffee at Catalyst or
Right.
you need a new outfit to wear out and you get a blazer at Berlin and Bailey. You know, like
Right.
these are the things that, you know, we're seeing this growth and as we see these apartments now starting to go in on Depot Street with
Yeah.
with the infrastructure changing, you know, we're looking at somewhere around 40 new private development apartments going in on Depot
And
and
more folks living.
living,
downtown,
walking,
yes.
working, and so which
Cool.
is exciting.
Yeah. So this 15 minutes thing that's happening in other, I mean, where did you find that out? Is there like a municipal magazine for,
There is,
All that are
but
within
the
the-
one thing that I there's a small town social media page
oh, okay.
that I follow a lot of that you
Okay.
read that I read a lot. I mean, it's there are a lot of statistics out there that you can throw out. Like communities that tend to be more wealthy tend to have more grass and less concrete.
Sure.
You know, they tend to have more sidewalks because
Yeah.
they're more accessible.
Yeah.
You know, like things like that
Yeah.
are so important to really understand when you're in the position that I'm in, you know. And
Yeah.
so I've tried really over the
That most
last 2
folks don't really
years.
think of much, but
No,
obviously
yeah.
are factors
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
important to know about.
Well,
I've always
and-
wondered about, you know, because like in ministry, people are surprised to learn there's this huge world of information available to you about just like anything.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered about those kinds of things, like how do you learn about how to be a good alderman?
You listen a lot. Like and I'm not a listener. Obviously, I'm a talker.
Yeah.
But I have spent the last, especially since I started homeschooling, trying to learn and listen and
Yes.
to be better at that. I ask a lot of questions
Yeah.
to the point where sometimes I make people crazy, but I have to because I'm a very, you know, auditory processor. So
And it's important to hear what's going on at a ground level with people in their world and their lives.
yeah, Yeah. Because my job is to represent the people in
to
my
represent
area,
me.
to represent you.
I want ADA compliant sidewalks
Thank
downtown.
you. Okay. Yes. I am working on that.
We do have a few more you-specific questions.
Okay.
How many kids does that treehouse sleep anyway?
So we love to call that was our gift to our kids, the
Super
pandemic
cool.
gift to the kids.
Yeah.
Because they didn't leave our property for like a year and a half. But so it really sleeps too. But you got to tell Russ to finish the bunk beds.
Russ, finish the bunk beds.
Yes, please. Okay, thank you.
So
It does match my house though.
it's cool.
It's so cool. He built it
It is cool.
with the help of the Del Sorbos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. We like the Del Sorbos.
Yeah.
Depot Street
Mm-hmm.
is coming along.
Yes.
What's the timeline until it is
So
booming and Catalyst is worldwide?
So we are. They were supposed to start pouring concrete for the sidewalks.
Uh-huh.
But of course we've had a lot of rain.
Yes.
And so Depot was supposed to take 18 months for the
Right.
complete project. With the state of the world we live in right now,
And
where
we all
we
know
have
that construction and
yeah,
logistics.
But at our last meeting, Mayor Doty said, he wants that section of Depot open by the Christmas celebration, which is the first week of December.
Cool.
Now, a lot has to go into that.
Oh, there's a ton that has to happen.
Yeah.
And it has to happen in succession.
Yes.
You can't skip things.
Yes.
Right.
And so, but the nice thing is, like, if we do this right.
And the plans look really cool.
Well, I mean, things people don't even know, and things I didn't know. Like, the water lines down there weren't big enough to put fire suppression in.
Yeah, it's
So nobody
old
wanted
stuff.
to develop a building that
Sure.
they can't protect.
Right.
So now that we've actually added the correct size water lines, we're getting development like crazy.
Yeah.
Know, so it has been at times painful,
It is what it is.
experience. I mean, I'm on the board at the Capitol, and it's been rough for all of us downtown at times, but like we're getting there, which is nice. So we're hoping at least maybe the main section will be open by the end of the year.
Cool.
Yeah.
Someone on our staff wants to know this. How do you do it all? Because you do a lot and you have a great community around you, and how on earth do you balance all the things?
So I serve on 8 committees. Some are government committees, some are nonprofits. I serve as a subcommittee chairwoman for the Tennessee Municipal League on legislative governance for municipalities.
Okay.
Do a lot of theater.
Yeah.
I homeschool my kids.
Yeah.
And I do it all because I have a really great support system.
Yeah.
I have an amazing husband who we've always kind of supported each other's dreams, whether it was chasing a soccer ball or running for office.
Yep.
And there are times when he says, we can't take that on right now. And there are times when he says, this is a good time, and so, and by having that good relationship where we can talk about those things and communicate those things to each other, we've been together 20 years, and so, but I also have, a great board that I work with at the town. I'm so lucky that we all really work very well together. We have incredible staff at the town of Greeneville. Our employees don't get enough credit half the time for all the amazing things they do.
Yeah.
And then I have some really wonderful friends that are awesome to my kids, and that's what we needed. Like that's how you do it all, right? You build a great village.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean,
Sometimes we take their kids. Sometimes they take our kids.
Sometimes I do have to say no.
Yeah. What's the last thing you said no to? That you can share?
Helping plan another 5K.
Okay.
Yeah, I do one a year with Jogging for Jess because I'm very heavily involved in the Jessica Coulter Memorial Scholarship Fund. If I had to drop everything that I do other than my children, that would be the only thing I keep, and so it's the thing I'm the most passionate about. And so, as far as nonprofit work goes, and so, but somebody called and said, can you help us do this? And I was like, I would love to sit down and have lunch with you, and I will tell you all of the wisdom I can impart, but I cannot actually take that on at this point. So, it's a lot of work.
So when you become someone who's in a public office with responsibility, and you're asked to do things, and you're on boards and committees, and you're sought after for those kinds of things. How do you say no? Because there are lots of things. There are always more things. None of them are bad things. They're all good options.
Oh, for sure.
And you have to say no to good things
Yeah.
for the things that are the best things, or that you know you're positioned to do or passionate about, et cetera, whatever that is.
Yeah.
How do you personally
So
manage
the
those
best
things?
advice I ever got, a friend of mine who ran for office in town recently too, she said, well, I called her when they were going to appoint me to the planning commission. So it's been 6 years ago. And I was like, what do you think I should do about this? And she was like, I always ask myself, does it help my family? Does it help my community?
Mm-hmm.
And does it take away from anything?
Yeah.
And if I can answer all of those well,
Uh-huh.
you know, then it's something I should probably do. And if there's one of those answers that doesn't fit,
Yeah.
and I really take that to heart, you know, like, especially when it comes to time with my girls as they get older.
Yeah.
Right. I swore I would not get busy after COVID.
How's that going?
Not so good.
How's that working?
Not so good. I am very busy. But so
Yeah.
Wednesday nights,
Yeah.
my husband teaches at church, and
Okay.
that is my night with Hazel.
Cool.
And I don't schedule things on Wednesday night
Yeah.
so that I can spend time with just her.
Yep.
You know, and so I have to make myself be very intentional. I walk with Krista
Yeah.
every morning almost because, like, these are the relationships that, and I have alarms set in my phone that literally, like, twice a week says call Jen, so I don't forget to check on my friend. You know, like, these are things that, like, as someone who suffers from crazy ADD and keeps a busy life, I write it all down and I keep it all. And, like, if you looked at my phone, you'd be like, whoa, your day is busy. But a lot of it's check on your people because your people are the most important thing.
Being intentional about those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is difficult to manage. And it's almost like manage and balance feels like the wrong word because it's too much.
Yeah.
You don't manage and balance more than you can actually handle.
Yeah.
You only manage and balance the things you can.
I also have to make intentional time. You know, I think my mom, when we were young, my mom was very active too. And so my mom was I mean, if you ask me, anyone who shaped my life, and I know people say their parents, but, like, my mom is, you know, everything that shaped my life. She was a single mom. She was, you know, if you look at us, we look alike, we act alike. We, like, when I need clothes for work, I still call her and say, Mom, can you go to the store and pick me out clothes? Because I know she will know exactly what I should, you know, have. But
So what you're saying is you have your own stylist.
She's my mom.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she's my mom. But so she had a plaque on the door, and when you walked out of the house, it had the Bible verse, be still and know. You know, and so, like, I have to be very intentional also with my busy schedule to remember that I also have to have that quiet, and I also have to have respite.
Yeah.
I'm a sleeper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have to have a lot of sleep, and I don't let myself sleep much. And I have some insomnia sometimes, and so, like, you can tell when I haven't slept.
Do you have trouble going to sleep
Yeah.
and your mind's racing?
So I do. So what I do is I listen to books.
Okay.
And I'm a presidential book junkie.
Cool.
So, like, right now I'm listening to a 48-hour audiobook on Ulysses S. Grant.
Wow.
I know. See, to most people that sounds really boring, but to me that's like my fluff.
Bring it. I could read all day.
Yeah. I just really like historical, you know, especially presidential history.
Yeah. Good stuff. Let's talk leadership and things you've learned about leading well. Talked a lot about your mom.
Mm-hmm.
She's obviously active in the community, was a leader for you. Who are some other people who have been models, good leaders, people you've learned from, things you're learning from Ulysses S. Grant, whatever the case might be?
Yeah.
I'm always interested in how effective people do that.
So I'm really lucky that I like to surround myself with very smart people. Most of the time they're engineers. That's just for some reason.
There's
My
nothing.
husband's an engineer.
Yeah.
But, you know, by one of my best friends, Brenda, is an aerospace engineer. Like, I just like to surround myself with very intelligent people. But for me, you know, I've been very lucky. My sisters and I were all very close. My older sister has always been someone who, you know, I looked up to and wanted to emulate. She's a fantastic physician now, OBGYN in West Virginia. And so I was lucky to have her and my grandmother, because we lived with my grandmother. I shared a bedroom with my grandmother until I was 11.
Really?
Yeah, and so she was my other parent. So even though my mom was a single parent, I definitely had a two-parent home.
Yeah.
Then when I moved here, you know, former Mayor Crum, you know, still to this day calls me almost every day and checks on me and makes sure that my children and my family are doing well. I'm very lucky to have, you know, an incredible father-in-law who was able to be that father figure in my life for the last 20 years. And my dad and I have since, you know, we have a good relationship now, and so, which is, you want that, you know, and so, but I'm also very lucky to have Krista, you know, in my life, and so I spend almost every day, at least part of my day, with Krista, and so Krista and Brenda, Jennifer Jenkins, we, you know, have a group text that we spend a lot of time praying for each other and spending time together, and so that's been good for me.
Yeah.
But
so you have lots of good counsel around you.
I do, and that I can call and really, you know, bend an ear and will pray with me, and will help carry some of the burden that is the busy life that I lead, you know, and so I actually don't like being the center of attention. And I think people think that I do, because so much like theater or being in office or doing, those are things that put you there.
Sure.
I actually just feel always called there more than I enjoy being there, if that makes any sense. And so they're all good balances for me.
Yeah.
My
Meaning
friend,
you feel called to it, that the need is there and you want to do it.
yes.
And you see the need.
Yeah.
And someone needs to.
Yeah.
Like a leader who fills vacuums because you're aware of them and sees them.
Yeah.
How do you think God uniquely puts you together to accomplish some of those things that you see need to happen?
I mean, I think for me, it's all, Krista calls me the people collector. I know that sounds really weird, but like.
No, my dad is that.
Yeah, and so like my only gift that I tell people that God gave me is I'm really good at connecting the right people to the right places at the right times, whether that's, you know, and I think that is really, that being that person that can do that is what always pushes me into whatever is next.
Yeah.
Whether it was, you know, 12 years I spent in restaurants, or the 12 years I spent as a personal trainer, and now in this position, like, where we have just kind of followed this like path that Russ and I were like, we're just gonna follow where God leads us and trust in that. And so that's just kind of been how that's happened.
So a few last questions.
Okay.
A bit of a serious one. What is a challenge in life, a difficult thing, a troubling circumstance, however you come up with that answer? What is a challenge and difficult circumstance in life you've had to overcome? And what did you learn out of it? And how has it helped you become stronger?
I've always struggled with my mental health at times. I think even being younger and having, you know, lived through some trauma younger, and then having to deal with that, and then growing up and living through COVID. I have real bad anxieties.
Okay.
And so then living through COVID was very hard for me. And then when I got COVID, I had a lot of guilt. Because we had spent so much time staying home to keep our family safe.
Right,
you know, I have some immune problems, and Russ's dad has some autoimmune problems. And so we just were very strict.
Gotcha.
And so when I got COVID, I not only got it, I gave it to my kids.
Gotcha.
And so I really spiraled. after that.
Yeah.
And it was a very dark time for me. Luckily, like I said, I surround myself with amazing women, and Krista was able to see that was happening and was able to talk to, my family physician, who's also one of our good friends, and they were able to help get me the right help when I think I needed it.
Cool.
So I think that
Newly
yes,
taking something,
Yeah.
getting help you hadn't been.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I had never been brave enough, I don't think, to admit that I needed help.
Yeah.
And I think that transparency
Yeah.
and I was always afraid, like, of the judgment that comes behind that. And so
Afraid of saying, I'm going to counseling, I'm talking to somebody, I'm taking this med.
yeah, well,
et cetera.
and
Or
even
even
admitting
that
that weakness, because to me,
I'm depressed,
yeah,
I'm anxious,
yeah,
I'm spiraling.
yeah. And so but so getting help,
Yeah.
and I actually went on an antidepressant and was able to kind of come up for air.
Yeah.
And it was a very, it's still very raw.
Yeah.
You know?
Took me probably 20 years after, way before, a doctor said, you probably need Adderall and you probably need some sort of antidepressant.
Yeah.
20 years later,
Yeah.
when I was 45,
Yeah.
Which is 4 years ago. Wow, almost 5 years ago. I'm almost 50 years old. I said, okay, fine.
Yeah. Well,
it took
and
me 20 years to be like, okay, fine.
yeah, and it's opened a lot of doors. I do a lot of like mentoring and work with high school, college age young women, and spend a lot of time with them, and it's been able for me to say, listen, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
Because
It's critical.
it really is, and it's not shameful.
No.
And it doesn't mean that Jesus doesn't love you.
No.
And it doesn't mean that faith is shaken.
Right.
It actually just means that you are taking care of yourself.
Yeah, and it might mean you have the strength and courage to do what you know you need to do to help and to lean on others and to accept that help. I think that we've got to continue to create community among others so that relationships can be safe for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's normal for most people anymore.
Yeah.
Ironically, I mean, we have more people around and we know more about people through the phones and we can access one another more readily and more easily. And yet I think we're lonelier than ever, which means I think that pushes down that stuff for people. So it makes it harder to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the transparency,
Yeah.
in all assets of my life, just trying to be a lot more just vulnerable. I'm not good at being vulnerable.
We like to say part of our team code is we lead with vulnerability.
Yeah, and when you can authentically lead with vulnerability,
Right. Instead of
it's
posturing
kind
or
of
faking
freeing.
it. Oh, it's
And so this, I think it's been
absolutely.
probably about 6 months, 8 months since I started, the Lexpro, and
Yeah.
I definitely, it's a day-to-day thing for me some days, and but my ADD is a lot more under control, and like and
Yes, I understand.
so I feel like we have to be more authentic in everything.
Yeah.
I stopped putting filters on my pictures
Nice.
because I realized that now I set an example for women that come behind me.
Yeah.
And if they don't
Live filter free.
because I was like fixing everything.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, wait, but when they see me come talk to their class, they're not seeing the authentic me through. So I have
That's
given
good.
that up.
Cool.
I have tried to just be more authentic. My friend Jennifer.
Yeah.
Gass, she and I are really, really close, and one of my best friends in the whole world. And through the last couple of years, she's been through a lot, and watching her find that strength and that vulnerability, and to be classy and graceful. And I think that when you can see that, it gives you courage.
Mm-hmm.
So if she was able to give that to me, I hope that I can give that to somebody else.
Yeah, good stuff.
So
last couple questions we
Okay.
have that we ask everybody.
Okay.
What is God currently teaching you, and what are you excited or encouraged about?
Patience. I have an 11-year-old. My life is about learning patience. Eliza and I are the same human. So we love each other the exact same way, but we butt heads the exact same way. Like
Mhm.
life for me right now is very much like a give and take with her. She struggled through the pandemic also,
Mhm.
same way her mama did. And
Yeah.
so learning to be patient with her, learning to be very honest with her and both my children, in the appropriate ways.
Yeah. Well, so you say patience. In what ways has parenting, Eliza, you refer to it specifically, but in what
Yeah.
way has parenting her or parenting generally helped you with your patience in other ways of life, in other parts of life?
Well, our kids are just, I think every generation is like, our kids are facing things we never faced before, right?
Yeah.
But it's so true.
It's
it's
unique
so
and
true.
different and at a pace
That
and
is just,
it's strange.
it's hard
'cause
to
it's
keep up
not-
with.
It's not the same stuff in lots of ways that previous generations dealt with, even though it's similar.
Yeah.
But
And
Yeah.
so, trying to answer her questions
okay.
as honestly as I can,
Yeah.
with as much love, and for her to continue to be that light of Christ that Liza's always been, and Hazel's not there yet. Hazel's still got that, like, innocent, bubbly, I got pink hair, my whole life is wonderful,
Right, yeah.
let me just cartwheel down the street.
Yeah.
But Liza is starting to come to the point where life is hard.
Old enough to see some things, experience some things.
Yep,
Yep.
and ask a lot of really hard questions and trying to figure out who she is and where she fits in this world. And
So patience with that development
yes,
from her.
yeah, not
in
so much
her-
like patience, like a temper patience.
Right.
Like no, just trying to like be patient in.
And your expectations don't have to, like, I struggle with trying to keep my expectations at bay so that they can become who they're supposed to be.
Right.
Instead of like trying to force them into something.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you mean?
Oh, for
Okay,
sure.
okay.
Too, in addition to that, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
like we had to quit ballet this year. Both of them decided not to dance at CBT,
Yeah.
and that's like our family,
Yeah.
And I was like,
You were not a big fan of that initially, I'm
oh,
sure.
it was hard. But
Yeah,
Eliza
right.
is swimming competitively in Kingsport, and
Okay.
Hazel's on the pre-team for gymnastics this year, and we don't
they're
have
doing
time.
fine, they
and
love it, and it's
they
fine.
love it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but don't you miss your friends?
Right.
Because I miss my friends. And so
When our first Sophie stopped playing soccer, I thought, okay, fine, Lord, I guess I'll deal with it, fine.
yeah, because you're both soccer players.
We were, and that's
At
how we met
Wofford?
in college.
Is that right?
No, Wheaton in Chicago.
Wheaton. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your daughter at Wofford? Is that where I
No,
got that
she's
from?
at Wheaton.
She's at Wheaton too. Okay.
You're thinking of. We'll cover-
Anyways, go
yes,
ahead.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so
When you get two ADD people talking.
yes, where were we? So, what are you excited or encouraged about?
It's really fun to watch Greeneville change and develop. And not change, like, when people hear the word change, they think, like, I want to come in and, like, change everything. It's not that, like, I don't want to change it. Like, I moved
We're
here
talking
because
about
I love
Greeneville.
it.
That kind of crazy change that they fear, probably hardly possible.
Yeah,
Let's be
well,
real.
that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but, like, the stuff on Depot, like, walking
Mm-hmm.
downtown. Like, I moved downtown so that I could have a 15-minute walk to
Right.
everywhere,
Right.
and like seeing that come to fruition and seeing, this dream that I've had, of this, arts, theater, food, shopping, all coming to life because, from the Capitol to the Theater Depot, which is on the other end of that
Right.
street, like that's just what I always wanted. And so I'm really excited that maybe my girls will get to experience that.
Cool.
And to be I remember Spencer Morrell, he's the political analyst for the Greeneville Sun, and at the meeting that we voted for the Depot Street project was one of my first meetings, and he said, "Are you nervous?" you just approved $7.2 million. Like, are you nervous? And I was like, not at all. And he was like, really? And I was like, if we don't take this risk now, all those buildings are eventually going to have to come down, because they're to the point where, they were starting to rot. And so now they get new life.
Cool. Yeah.
And like I said, I'm a presidential history junkie. So
Yeah.
I love the history side of Greeneville.
Oh, yeah.
That's my jam. But
I've seen all those old pictures of Depot and some of that old footage.
Yeah.
And thought, how cool was that?
Yeah. Oh, I teach that Exploring Greeneville class.
Yeah, yeah.
Where we get to go and we get to learn all about, and I'm like, everybody should take this.
Yeah.
Everybody should understand that there was like a colored entrance at the Capitol. Did you know that? And that's what the whole
No.
balcony in the Capitol was built for.
I'm not surprised. I know that a lot of balconies were used.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I was on the board there for years before I knew that. And so I think finding that discovery and finding that, that passion that's coming, all that is so exciting. And being a part of that, I cannot wait to open the new fire department. That's huge for our firefighters who were living in a station that was built in 1954. And every time they drove the truck in, the floor sunk 2 inches.
Really?
On top of them, because their living quarters were down here.
Yeah, yeah.
And so literally they would drive these trucks that were built for now, that were built in a station that was built for much lighter trucks.
Right. So
it would come in and they'd drop 2 inches and you'd be sleeping down here. And so, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Cool. There's some really cool things happening that, it's not necessarily changing Greeneville. It's just change that is happening.
Yeah, it's great.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for keeping us apprised of the latest.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Maybe we'll have you back and you can give us some of that, what'd you call it? Encountering Greeneville? What
Exploring.
Exploring Greeneville.
Exploring Greeneville.
Be cool to talk some more.
You can just walk around town with me one
Will
day.
do.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. Can we chinkies again?
We're chinking.
Bink.